Well, spring is just around the corner and there are more houses that are coming on the market. And if you're ready to get into the real estate transaction, it's a very exciting time. You know, looking for a house can be fun, it can be very exciting, but it also could be very stressful. It's the Real Estate Show. Welcome to the Real Estate Show. My name is Rick Naples. I wanted to talk on this show about some of the preparation and things that you do when you're getting ready to buy a house. Now, on the Real Estate Show, I've gone over many times the procedures of the transaction. You know, finding a house, looking for a home, making an offer on a home, how to get accepted, and so on and so forth, and tracked through the transaction all the way through the closing. But what I wanted to talk about a little bit here is the things that you should look at before you even start. I mean, first of all, you get the idea in your head that it's time for you to look at buying a house. Now, whether or not that could be because of a life change or a financial change or whatever, there's a motivation behind it, and it's time for you to step into the real estate market. But there are certain things you should do before you even look at getting a mortgage or talking to a realtor. And I call them the preparation ideas. You want to make sure that you know where you stand. I mean, where are you in your life? Where's your income at compared to your credit? Are you going to be able to handle the costs that are involved with home ownership? Let's talk about credit for a moment. A lot of the banks, when they look at granting a mortgage, is yes, they do secure the mortgage with the value of the home you're looking to purchase, but they also look at what your personal credit profile is. Now, I'm not a credit officer, so I don't want to get into numbers of debt-to-income ratios and outstanding balances and so on and so forth. But what I will say is you need to know where you're at. Some of the buyers that I have talked to have gone through the situation where they'll look at their credit and then they'll talk to a credit officer or a banker or someone within that industry and look for ways to get their credit score or their situation into the best possible picture that they can get. And that may mean looking at credit lines, maybe lowering credit lines, paying off balances, looking at your student loan situation, maybe what your car loan balance is. It could mean looking at refinancing debt into a consolidated loan, so it's just one small payment as opposed to many. There are many different things that you need to look at. So you want to take that all into consideration and get your credit in line. You also want to look at what your income is. Now, unfortunately, we get all excited when it comes to buying a home, and a lot of buyers forget that it's not just going to be the mortgage payment. There are other things that are involved. You're going to have the principal and interest on the mortgage. You're going to have the private mortgage insurance amount. You also have to worry about your property tax amount and any other taxes that might be added into the payment. And then there's always the rule of no matter what that ends up being, there's going to be a certain amount of dollars you're going to need to maintain your home. Not all houses are perfect, folks. I don't care if it's new construction or a remodeled home or whatever it might be. While you're living in the home, there are going to be certain expenses to maintain that home. And they vary all over the board. So you want to make sure that you have the monies in place or the ability to be able to afford that. Back in the old days, we used to say that you take your mortgage payment and multiply it times 2. So if you were able to afford, without too much stress, twice of whatever your mortgage payment was going to be, you should find home ownership to be very easy. That doesn't work in all cases, but it was an old guideline that we used to look at. One of the other things that you want to do is you want to kind of look at what you might need for a down payment. Now, one of the things that people forget out there is there's not only the down payment for a mortgage, whatever program you may have to be in. But then there's also the miscellaneous costs that circulate around that, and those are the closing costs. And I always say to a buyer, you have to allow about 3% of whatever the purchase price is of the home that you're looking to buy towards your closing costs. That's just a ballpark figure. It's not exact. You're not going to know your exact numbers until you've picked the house you want to purchase, had the offer accepted, and now you're going through the finalization of your mortgage. But before you even get excited and start looking on the internet for other houses, or looking at pictures of houses, or talking to realtors, or looking at houses, there's an exercise I want you to do. This exercise is something that's been around for years, and I used to use it all of the time, and I've used it not only for looking at purchasing houses, but also many things that I've done, and that's making a list of pros and cons, or what I call a wants and a needs list. When we go looking for a house, we all have an idea of what we want. We want that 3-bedroom home with the 2 full baths and the 2-car garage on that acre lot of land, and it's got to be located within so many miles of a school system, and so on and so forth. These are kinds of things that we start looking at before we even know where our price range is going to be. But you want to make a list of what those things are, and then look at what you actually need. If you cannot find that perfect home with everything that you want, what are the things that you absolutely need in a home, especially if it's your first home? And also, can you be open-minded and flexible in switching those things out? And what I mean by that is, you want a house with a 2-car garage, but you look at a house that's in the same price range that doesn't have a garage but maybe has more land, or a finished basement, or some feature to it that's extra special. You're willing to keep the car out on the street or in the driveway. Or perhaps the opposite. You're willing to go with a little bit less of a house if it has a bigger garage, and so on and so forth. So I say take a piece of paper, draw a line right down the middle. On one side, put your wants. On the other side, put your needs, and just kind of talk. My also advice out there is, please, if you're a couple and you're looking to purchase a home, talk to each other. I tell a story about when I first started out in real estate on how I went out with one half of a couple, and I showed a number of houses to this young lady, and she seemed to find a house style that she liked. She was just particular about how it was set up. So we went and we looked at the house, and we went and looked at another house. I showed her over time 32 properties, most of which all the same style in different locations in the towns she wanted to look at. She finally came to a house that was just laid out. It had the kitchen she wanted, it had the family room she wanted, the fireplaces, everything was beautiful and great. And she convinced her husband to make the time and come see the house, because this was the house she wanted to purchase. Well, we got together, we went out together. He came out, he looked at the house. He turns to her in the living room of the house and he says, "It's a nice house, honey, but I really don't like raised ranches." Well, most of the homes I had just shown this woman were raised ranches. She had never talked to her husband about the style of the home. So sit down as a couple and really do the wants and the needs, and do it together, and have an intelligent discussion so that you're both on the same page when it comes to looking at a house. Let's look at this quick presentation on some of the things I just talked about, and I'll be back right after to continue on with what I call the pitfalls in preparing to buy a home. Welcome back. There are several pitfalls. These are the kinds of things that can happen that might derail, as I call it, or get you off the pathway of being able to purchase a home. And there are tons of them. But I want to just talk about the main core ones. I had mentioned earlier, I was talking about credit and looking at your credit balances and high credit compared to what you owe as far as debts are concerned. That's a very important thing, because if you have 2 or 3 credit cards and they're all maxed out, it's not going to help when it comes time to pay for your mortgage. It can actually cause a problem because they're going to say you're carrying too much debt and they can't add the mortgage debt to that. So be careful of that. High credit card debt could derail your possibilities of getting a mortgage. The flip side of that is having low credit card debt. Believe it or not, I had a situation where a buyer was not able to get a mortgage because he had 5 different credit cards, all with very high credit lines that he had very small balances on. And when we looked at it, the banker was concerned that having all this credit available, he was going to get the house and immediately run up his debt by going crazy and buying stuff and then not be able to make the mortgage payment. So they felt it was a high-risk situation and they wouldn't go forth with the mortgage. That problem was solved very easily with a few phone calls and a couple of changes to change the debt-to-income ratios. But it was a surprise. I mean, you're getting turned down for a mortgage because you have too much good credit? A little strange. There's another thing that happens, and that is the buyer, you, failure to prepare. During the course of looking for a home and preparing to get a mortgage, there's going to be a lot of information that you're going to need to get to the mortgage officer you decide to work with to help get the loan you need on the house. Now, we get a lot of stuff through email. We get a lot of internet access to our bank statements and so on and so forth. But a lot of the mortgage companies out there still want hard copies. They want monthly statements. They don't want things printed off the internet. They don't trust the internet or statements off the internet. So you want to make sure that you have bank statements that come to you that are hard print and within those terms that the banks might be looking for. And you want to keep those handy because you're going to have to provide copies to your mortgage officer. Same thing goes with pay stubs. A lot of folks now get the automatic deposits into their accounts as far as pay stubs are concerned. And usually when that happens, you get paid, and then following in the mail a couple of days later, you get a receipt that basically is just a stub. It would be the stub of a normal paycheck if you got it the old-fashioned way. Well, make sure you keep those. Make sure that you can get a statement from your employer, if the stub doesn't show it, of what your year-to-date earnings are. Little details like that help, and it helps in the processing of your mortgage. The other thing that you want to do is try to keep all of your bills handy. I mean, what do you pay for electricity? What's your cell phone bill? What's your average credit card payment? And so on and so forth. Because as you go through the process, you're going to need to have that information. I would like to say you can apply for a mortgage, get an answer right away, and close immediately. But in reality, sometimes it takes a little time, and things will change, and your mortgage officer is going to ask you for an update to make sure you're still in line with qualifying for that mortgage. So you want to have all that information available. The other pitfall I want to talk about is, I call it the pitfall of being too excited. I've experienced this with past buyers over the years. You have gone out and you've looked at homes and you found the home that you want to purchase, and you're making a mortgage application, and because your offer has been accepted on the home that you want to purchase, you decide to start getting prepared to move into your new home. So you go furniture shopping, you go curtain and drape shopping, you go miscellaneous shopping, you go looking for small appliances that maybe you didn't have if you were an apartment person. You start looking at different expenses, and you start charging things on your charge cards. Well, guess what, folks? Some mortgage companies, if not all of them, pull your credit profile before you close on the home. So if you've run up your credit card debt, there's a very good possibility that even though you thought you were all set, the bank is going to say to you, guess what? You no longer qualify for the mortgage, and everything's going to fall apart. So I always advise my buyers, when you're in the process of looking for a home and subsequently applying for a mortgage, chill. Don't do anything on your credit cards. Don't take out any loans. Make payments on your credit cards, yes, but don't charge anything because you don't want to increase your debt. Very important thing to take a look at. Now, of course, there are other pitfalls. Some of them are within your control, some are not. I've had people that have switched jobs during the process of purchasing a home for very good reason. Perhaps they're looking to purchase a home because they're switching jobs. They're moving to a new area. But you want to be careful about that. You want to ask your mortgage officer right up front, if that's your situation, how that will affect your mortgage application. Now, in some cases it doesn't, but in most cases it might, because the investor or the mortgage company looking at giving you that loan wants you to have stability of a certain amount of time at a job, especially if it's in a new industry. So again, and I'm not a mortgage officer here, folks, so you need to talk to a mortgage officer. You just want to be careful of what your overall situation is, because that pitfall may derail your possibilities of buying a house. And finally, there's an interesting one that happens, and that's sometimes the buyer being too rigid about the home they're looking to purchase. Now, this can happen in a number of different cases. It most likely will happen after you've made an offer on a house and you've had your home inspection done, and there are negotiable items that come up. You have to be in the mind frame of being open-minded and flexible, especially if you're looking to purchase a home and you requested certain things for the seller to do and the seller says no. You need to be able to be strong and to either move forward without those things being done or to walk away from the deal. So you got to get yourself into that mind frame that here's what I'm going to do if this scenario happens, so that you're prepared. But stay open-minded. And the final thing, hire a realtor. There are a lot of folks out there that look at houses on the internet. They go ahead and they contact the seller directly, or they contact the listing agency of the home they're looking to purchase. And they don't interview and hire a realtor to represent their best interest as the buyer. You have to remember, if you're not using a realtor, there's nobody looking out for you. You're on your own. And you're not a professional, and this is a very large purchase. So use a professional. Get the expertise, get the guidance behind the whole transaction. And you'll find that it can stay fun, it can stay exciting, and your stress levels going to reduce way down. Let's take a look at this presentation, and I'll be back with a little bit more commentary. This is the portion of the real estate show I call the Real Estate Mailbag. My opportunity to address questions that are emailed at the email address you see on the screen that are asked to me when I'm out and about or come up in general conversations. One of the emails that I've gotten is from a young couple that is just venturing into looking at a house. And their question, I'll try to focus the question, it was about the photographs. There's a very popular technique that's being used by realtors now, and that's to hire professional photographers to go out and take high quality pictures of the homes they've listed for sale. Now, it's great to look at pictures, especially the ones that are professionally done. There's all kinds of different lenses and views and panoramic shots and so on and so forth. But I like to relate this particular story. The photographer's job, even if it's the realtor that's taking the pictures, is to get the best possible view or picture of the room or the house that they're looking to get sold. It does not give you the sense of the room by actually being in it. We have a joke in real estate on how some of the older homes, they have water stains on the ceilings from old dripping pipes or from the steam units that were used to heat homes and so on and so forth. And you take the picture a little bit lower so you don't get the ceiling and you don't show the water stain. Picture looks great, it's wonderful, but there's something there that you would not see unless you physically go out and see the home. So enjoy the pictures, enjoy the efforts of the realtors and the photographers that put those pictures online and on the websites. But always remember, in the case of real estate, it's not necessarily a picture that's selling the home. It's actually going out and being in the home and looking at it and feeling it and sensing the space for yourself. My name is Rick Naples, and this has been The Real Estate Show. I thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.